There are currently 5 million people in the UK with a full motorcycle licence, but only around 1.1 to 1.2 million of those are actually actively riding. Now just let that sink in a minute, because that means 4 out of 5 people who chose motorcycling as their preferred mode of transport have quietly walked away from it. They just stopped riding. They hung up their gloves, parked their bikes one last time and walked away. Now I came to motorcycling quite late. I was 33 when I started, and I pretty quickly realised something, that most riders that I was meeting along the way were older than I am. And it wasn't just the fact they were older that they had in common. Many of the people I spoke to at bike nights and bike meets were thinking about stopping riding. I'd hear it quite regularly in conversations with them. Time and time again, people would be saying that they might sell their bike this year, and they would also say things like they weren't sure if they would be renewing their insurance because they just don't ride their bike enough. At first, it felt like anecdotal conversation, people just being friendly and trying to make conversation with me. But then when I started looking at the numbers, well, it starts to stack up a bit. The average age of UK motorcyclists is around 54 years old. In 2021, 48% of riders were over the age of 60, and only 10% were under 39. So that's not the signs of a healthy pipeline for the industry, is it? This is not a hobby that's growing. This is a hobby with a demographic of people that are slowly aging out. And I'm very aware that when I look at my own analytics for this YouTube channel, nearly 40% of you guys at home that you sat there watching my channel fall into the bracket of the 45 to 65 plus bracket. And, well, let's be honest, none of us are getting any younger. This isn't just what happens over time with an industry. This is the signs of a systematic failure down to 2 main things. One is the inability to keep riders that are already here invested and happy to keep riding. And 2, it's an inability to replace the ones that it's losing. Because if 4 out of 5 people have already left the industry, then there's clearly a bigger retention problem happening here. So why are people actually quitting riding? Well, there are so many factors at play that create this issue. The first one is cost, and it's something that I've documented many times on this channel, and throughout these, I'll be putting pop-up banners at the top of the screen for most of these points that I've already covered. Like I said, the first one is cost, and this is a really big one, because you get your insurance renewal, for example, and it's more than the bike's worth. Servicing costs are climbing as well. Last year, I got quoted £160 for an oil and filter basic service on my bike, and that same service with that very same garage this year is £209. Bike prices are rising as well. Look how much the Yamaha MT-07 was when it first came out in 2014. £5,200 on the road back then, but the same bike now, for the latest generation, it's going to set you back £8,000. Now, it's easy to argue that's just inflation, Jack, but if you run those figures through any number of online inflation calculators, £5,200 in old money is actually closer to £7,000 today, not 8. And while that's a topic which we might come back to in an entirely different video in the future, so if you wanted to, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that in the future. But let's stick on point of this one. My point still stands that everything about riding is getting more expensive. And eventually, you look at the bike sitting in the garage and the numbers just stop making sense, don't they? After cost comes the second point, which is family pressure. Now, not many people will talk openly and honestly about this. Most of us won't stop riding because we want to. Some of us will stop riding because someone we love has asked us to. Be that your partner, your kids, someone in the family, it's dangerous conversation. And it lands differently when you've got something else to lose. Now, I can relate to that because I'm a husband, I'm a dad to a little boy, and I'm soon going to be a dad to a second child, a little girl who's on the way. And these conversations happen, and it honestly impacts every decision that I personally make about when and where I'm going to go for a ride on my bike. And I personally know riders who have sold their bikes once their kids have arrived. It's a completely understandable decision. The third factor is the loss of community. Motorcycling is a very social activity, and it always has been. But when your riding mates stop and they move on or they sell their bikes, then that kind of glue that bonds us all together starts to disappear. Riding alone, whilst it's still good fun, just isn't the same. You don't go on the same long journeys. You don't have those stop-offs for coffee and cake. You don't have those moments of connecting with your friends anymore. So it becomes a completely different kettle of fish when you're riding on your own. Then there's the road surfaces themselves. As I mentioned, I would putting pop-out banners at the top of the screen, and there's one here about road surfaces. I covered this topic off before because, well, potholes and poor road surfaces make routes that used to be good fun just, well, stressful instead of the usual escape. And all of this leads to that decisive garage moment. The bike hasn't moved for weeks, maybe months, and then, as I mentioned, that insurance email, that renewal letter comes through the post or via email, and you just think to yourself, why am I paying all this for something that I'm just not using? And that's it, isn't it? That's the moment that people quietly step away. Have you thought about selling your bike or giving up riding completely? What's made you stay if you haven't done so yet, or what's making you consider stepping away? Drop it in the comments, because I read every single one of them, and I'm interested to hear your take on all of this. Now, I know this won't be groundbreaking news to many of us. It's extremely common knowledge, even to the point that the industry even recognises it and acknowledges it as a key problem for the industry. As usual, I've gone away and looked at reports from the likes of the Motorcycle Industry Association for evidence to back up what I'm saying here. And the CEO, Tony Campbell, has already said in many quoted reports that we've lost sight of young riders. Over the past 2 decades, we've been great at servicing an aging demographic, but we have a real identity problem on our hands. So they recognise that there's a problem, but look closely at the response. It's all about recruiting and getting new riders in, not keeping the ones we already have active. And for me, that's a massive mistake, because you cannot recruit your way out of a retention problem. If riders are leaving faster than they're joining, well, the maths just doesn't stack up. Just look at what I covered in my last video on how UK motorcycle dealerships are closing up and down the country and why that's happening. The maths just doesn't math anymore. When those dealerships disappear, you're losing more than just a showroom and somewhere to buy a bike. You lose part of the community, you lose a touch point, you lose reasons to stay engaged with the industry. And when the places riders go start to disappear, well, the riders are going to disappear with them, aren't they? Now, if you're on the fence about whether to keep riding, at the very least, you're going to want to protect the bike that you've got whilst you've got it. Because theft is one of the few things you can actively control. And that's why I use LITELOK, specifically this one, the LITELOK X1. This particular one uses their state-of-the-art baronium core, which is designed to resist angle grinder attacks, not just slow them down a bit. It actually resists them, and thanks to its anti-twist shackle as well, it's the best solution and the best in the business, in my personal opinion. And I'm not just saying that as a theory, it's been tested. I own this lock, I use it, and if I leave the bike anywhere away from home, or even when it's at home, apart from right now because it's in my hands, it is on the bike. There's loads of videos out there all over YouTube of people attacking these with angle grinders, trying to chop parts of them off, trying to get them off the bike without the keys. You can go and watch them. You can see just how well this thing fares from all those independent tests. And I've even got an unboxing video on the channel, which you can go and view by clicking the pop-up banner at the top of the screen, or by clicking the link in the description below. There's also a link in the description where you can go and buy one of these. You can check them out for yourself. Buying from our link won't cost you a penny more than buying direct from the guys at LITELOK, but it does help my channel and keeps me making these free-to-view videos for you guys. Now anyway, back to the topic. People do come back to motorcycling. Returning riders are a real thing, and in some ways it seems like it should be a really easy task because you've already got your license, and you might still even have the gear if you're still fitted into it, and you kind of know what you're doing. But the reality is very different because there's no system helping people return back into riding. How many of you are going to take that additional training to blow off the cobwebs after multiple years without a bike? There's no clear pathway for that. There's no real encouragement. There's no infrastructure built around it. And ultimately, there's no incentive to go and do it. And with fewer dealers, weaker communities to pull you back in, and a higher cost to entry, well, is it really worth it? Coming back is harder than it should be. It's clear to me that we are obsessed with getting new riders in and completely unprepared to keep them when they enter. There's 5 million people in the country right now who cared enough to get a motorcycle license, but some 4 million of them don't ride anymore. That's not a lack of interest. That's not people outgrowing bikes. That's a system that just didn't care enough to keep them. Now, if this video hasn't wound you up enough already, then please do consider going to watch last week's video just up here, where I looked at why the UK motorcycle dealerships all across the country are closing. And if you're new here or a returning viewer that hasn't done so already, then you can subscribe to my channel by clicking my face just down here. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Ride safe, and hopefully I get to see you all next week.